Hi, today's standard is MSES 2-1. You're developing a model to describe the cycling of Earth's materials and the flow of energy that drives this process. Through this video, you will take notes and complete some review questions that's going to help you analyze the four spheres of the Earth. First question is, do you think that the eco-column that you built for the past few weeks can survive on its own for 3.8 billion years? Probably not. While the Earth has been able to sustain life for 3.8 billion years on its own. So you think about if your eco-column is a mini ecosystem, that can probably sustain itself for a few weeks, but the Earth was able to sustain life for 3.8 billion years by itself. Why do you think this is possible? And why do you think there are no other planets in the solar system that can sustain life like the Earth can? Well, let's think about what living things need to survive. There's two major things. First, all living things need energy. All living things also need matter. Matter such as carbon, water, and nitrogen. We learned about the cycles in the last unit. So let's dig deeper. So why is Earth able to sustain life? Well, we know that all living things need matter and other elements and energy to survive. The Earth can be divided into four different parts. We have the atmosphere, the geosphere, the hydrosphere, and the biosphere. These four spheres interact with each other and they allow the matter that all living things need and the energy that all living things need to flow through each other. And these interactions create the conditions necessary for life on Earth. So what is the atmosphere? The atmosphere is a mixture of invisible gases that surround the Earth. If you look at this chart, you can see that almost 80%, actually 78% of the atmosphere is made out of nitrogen. We learned about nitrogen in the nitrogen cycle. Oxygen is only 21% of the atmosphere, and this is what we breathe in. The atmosphere is made out of several layers. You don't have to know the layers in detail, but I just wanted to show you this diagram to show you that the atmosphere is made out of different things. What's the geosphere? The geosphere it's mostly solid. It includes all the rocks and soils of the Earth. It extends from the center of the Earth, right here in the inner core, all the way to the surface. We call the surface the crust, and this is where we live, and we see lots of mountains and soil on our Earth. The hydrosphere is all the water on the Earth. Basically, it's the water cycle. It includes all forms of water in the ocean, lakes, rivers, glacier, and polar ice caps. And you know from learning about the water cycle that water is really important for all living things and that we are constantly moving water into and out of our bodies. Lastly, the biosphere is made out of all living things on Earth and the areas of the Earth where life is found. The prefix bio means life, so you can remember it that way, biosphere. And living things usually need elements and nutrients from the geosphere and the hydrosphere to survive. So these four systems are always interacting with each other. And when they're interacting with each other, it will change the Earth. So maybe the hydrosphere can crash into the geosphere and erode away some of the rocks, or the biosphere can take water from the hydrosphere, and it's always changing the Earth. It has always been changing since 3.8 billion years ago. But these interactions are really important because it allows the matter, like water, carbon, and nitrogen, to cycle, be recycled among these four spheres, and it allows energy to flow through the system. We know that energy is essential for all processes on Earth and life. So let's talk about how this actually happens. How does energy flow? Where does the matter cycle? Or how does it cycle? So let's talk about energy first. So where in the world does all the energy on the Earth come from? All the energy on the Earth comes from either the sun, or the inner core of the Earth. Okay, the sun, of course, you know, it can warm the land and water, powers the water cycle, it actually powers the wind, it allows for photosynthesis to occur, all those things. The inner core of the Earth, this area is very warm, it has a lot of heat. This heat energy can also affect the other spheres as well. So those are the two energy sources on the Earth. So how does energy flow in the biosphere? This is review. We learned that producers can capture the sunlight energy and provide energy for all the trophic levels above it. Because producers are the only ones that can take the sun's energy and make it into glucose or food. So all the other living things depend on the producers. And when they consume each other, they pass energy up the trophic level. How does energy flow in the atmosphere? So in the atmosphere, which includes the air, the sun will warm the air all over the earth. Now it depending on where you live on the earth, and you learned this last year, the earth is tilted on an axis, and when it's rotating around the sun, because it's on an axis, different parts of the world will receive different amounts of sunlight. Now, because there's different amounts of sunlight in different parts of the world, the sun will heat up some parts of the world hotter than others, and this uneven distribution of the heat will actually cause the air to flow. And when the air flows, it produces winds, and it also causes different weather patterns. And that's how energy flows through the atmosphere. How does energy flow in the geosphere? So, remember the geosphere includes all the rocks and soil of the earth. And I also told you that the inside of the earth is very hot. You guys are pretty familiar with volcanoes and the idea that there's magma under the earth. You know that the magma is very hot and it's under a lot of pressure. Well, this heat energy will actually drive a lot of different changes to the earth, such as volcanoes and earthquakes, mountain formation, continents moving. These are all changes driven by the energy from the inside of the earth. And lastly, let's talk about how does energy flow in the hydrosphere. Remember, the hydrosphere includes the water on the earth. And this is review 2. The sun will heat up the water in different parts of the world. And when it heats up, it will actually escape into the atmosphere. We call that evaporation. When it evaporates into the atmosphere, it can condense and then precipitate back. We call this the water cycle. So the sun powers the hydrosphere as well. So we talked about energy, which all living things need to survive, and we talked about how energy flows in each of the 4 spheres. Now let's talk about matter, carbon, water, nitrogen, and other elements that living things need. So the 4 spheres, look at this diagram, the 4 spheres are constantly in contact with each other and constantly interacting with each other. So in this picture, you can see that the biosphere, like the deer and the trees, are interacting with the atmosphere. They're getting oxygen, carbon dioxide. They're also getting water from the hydrosphere. The geosphere is interacting with the hydrosphere, allowing some water to flow in between these two systems. The lithosphere is providing land for the biosphere. So you can see they're all interconnected. Among this interconnectedness, we have 3 cycles that we have talked about in the last unit. And you know that water is cycling through, call that the water cycle, and that's a form of matter. Carbon is also cycling through these 4 systems, and nitrogen is as well. So matter is always being recycled and reused through the systems, through these cycles. And that's how matter is recycled through the 4 spheres.